Well, it appears that Syrian troops, pro-government units, have been deployed in the region of Afrin to the north of Syria on the Turkish border. At this point, it is not clear how many men have been mobilized or what type of equipment was sent. But the information was first reported by Lebanese Hezbollah media, which is close to Damascus, and then confirmed by the YPG, the Syrian Kurdish group, that Turkey considers to be a terrorist organization. Now, the Turkish army has started an offensive against the YPG about a month ago, and the YPG called on Damascus to come to the rescue and to come and guarantee the sovereignty of its northern border against a foreign attack. Yesterday, Turkey warned the Syrian government against helping the Kurdish forces, saying that it wouldn't hesitate to hit Syrian forces if necessary. And now it seems that Damascus has decided to give a green light to go anyway. So there is a risk of a direct military confrontation between Syria and Turkey.
All right, thank you very much, Chloe. Chloe Dorman. We can now go to Turkey and speak to our correspondent in Istanbul, David O'Byrne. David, we're hearing from Turkish state media that pro-government forces have actually retreated already, even before reaching Afrin. What are you hearing?
That's right, yeah. We've had no official confirmation of that, or there's been no official statements released by anybody in Ankara. But Turkey's state news agency Anatolia has reported as a flash news item just a few minutes ago, that armoured vehicles belonging to what it described as militias allied to the Syrian state attempted to reach Afrin by road, but the Turkish artillery fired warning shots towards them, and their convoy was first halted about 10 kilometres south of Afrin and then turned back. So the understanding from that, if it's correct, is that the pro-Syrian militia haven't actually reached Afrin. As I said, there's been no confirmation of this. But as Anatolia is the official state news agency, it is probably quite safe to assume that their information did come from an official source.
David, what does this mean for relations between Turkey and Russia, considering that earlier when we heard from Turkey's president, he said that he'd struck a deal with Russia to prevent this from happening, to prevent pro-government forces from helping the Kurds in Afrin?
Well, that's a good question. The one thing we can say about the information that's been coming from official Turkish sources over the last couple of days, that it's frequently been contradictory. Turkey's foreign minister yesterday was in Amman, the Jordanian capital, and he gave a press conference in which he stated quite clearly that Turkey had no problem with Syrian state forces entering Afrin as long as their aim was to remove and replace the YPG fighters who were in the town. Now, since then, both advisors speaking on behalf of President Tayyip Erdogan and Tayyip Erdogan himself have said the exact opposite, that Turkey won't accept pro-Syrian or Syrian forces entering Afrin. So we know that President Erdogan did speak to President Putin yesterday. There were no official details released at the time. So it's a little bit surprising that he subsequently claimed that a deal had been struck. There's certainly nothing come from the Russian side so far. But as I said, it's a very confusing situation. Officials are giving out contradictory messages.
All right, thank you very much indeed for that update from Istanbul. That was David O'Byrne. And now we can go to the UK, where we're joined by Peter Ford, former British ambassador to Syria. Hello, thank you very much indeed for your time. Now, first of all, I'd like to talk about who it is exactly that has entered Afrin. David O'Byrne, our correspondent in Istanbul, was just talking there of militias allied to the Syrian state. Who are these troops exactly?
They are auxiliaries of the Syrian army. They're not official army, but they are paid by the government, and they're a sort of government national defense force. In fact, that is their title, National Defense Force. They're not unlike in Saudi Arabia. You have the National Guard. So these are fully fledged, paid for by the Syrian government forces. And they have carried out many other battles, including many against ISIS.
Now, as I mentioned before with our correspondent in Istanbul, Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said that he had struck a deal with Russia for this not to happen. We haven't had confirmation from Russia, but if this were true, whose side then is Russia on?
Russia is 90% on the side of the Syrian government and wishes to see Syrian sovereignty restored over all its territory. Now, Russia, of course, does have its own national interests, and that's the 10% they do want, as far as possible, to protect their important relationship with Turkey. But when push comes to shove, Russia will side with Syria. And it's noticeable that the Turks have not been able to use their air force in Afrin. Why? Because the Russians won't let them. The Russians can dictate who is allowed into Syrian airspace west of the Euphrates, and Afrin is west of the Euphrates.
Now, what's happening in today in Afrin, what does it mean for Manbij further east? Because President Erdogan said he would go there too, setting up a potential clash then with a NATO ally, the US.
Well, it appears that the Syrian government is willing to take casualties to fight on behalf of the Kurdish area of Afrin, but the US is not willing to fight Turkey to defend the Kurdish-controlled area of Manbij. The Americans just say that if their American forces in Manbij are attacked, they will retaliate. They don't say that they are ready to take casualties, as the Syrian government is doing. So this is an important lesson here, and has important ramifications, not just for who takes control of Afrin, but who takes control of that whole band of Kurdish-controlled but American-manipulated territory along the northern border. What Syria and Russia are giving here is a lesson to the Kurds in who their long-term real friends are.